Currently in theaters from director Antoine Fuqua, who brought you The Replacement Killers and Training Day and other things, is Michael. This is not the story of Michael Jackson. This is a story of Michael Jackson. There's a lot to unpack here, so save the torches and the pitchforks. I know this is a film that I was very dubious about, but because from the makers of the Queen film Bohemian Rhapsody, which told a story based on the life of Queen, but really wasn't wildly accurate as far as its timelines and a lot of what's in the film. But you get all the hits, the Jukebox musical, as they call them, all the hits performed by somebody approximating the look of the sound of the artists. And Michael, when I heard Michael was going to be from the same team who made that, or the producers, I was like, okay, so this is going to basically get all the greatest hits. It's going to hit all the career highlights. It's going to be pretty inaccurate in terms of timeline. It's going to make up a bunch of stuff, and it's going to be a pretty rosy picture of somebody who is pretty complicated. And that's what this is. So I'll give you a little backstory. And a lot of people are talking about this movie, and a lot of people are trashing this movie because it doesn't go hard enough on the dark side of Michael Jackson. And what I would say to that is, it is a Hollywood biopic produced by the family of Michael Jackson. Of course, it's not going to portray him as the monster that some people believe he is. Including people who have accused him of horrendous things. It's going to be a glossy, glittery biopic that extols his creativity and his good deeds and pretty much not look at anything else. Now, apparently, the film did have a sequence about his accusers, his youthful accusers and things like that, but there was something with the settlement with one of the accusers where that person's name could never be mentioned in TV or film. And apparently they had shot a bunch of things and that came to light, so they cut it out. So originally there was something that addressed that in this film, but now there isn't. So the film stars Jaafar Jackson, who's Michael Jackson's nephew, Jermaine Jackson's son, who does a pretty incredible job at portraying him in look and sound and performance. Colman Domingo as Joe Jackson, not the guy who did Steppin' Out. Joe Jackson, the father of the Jackson family, and Nia Long as Catherine, I believe, Catherine Jackson, the mother, the matriarch of the family. And then you also have Miles Teller as somebody who comes in late in the film as Michael Jackson's lawyer, who helps him basically break out and be his own superstar. So I've read articles now. There used to be a great site called History versus Hollywood that doesn't seem to update like it used to, but I found a really great Rolling Stone article that really kind of savages the film on inaccuracy. If you're going to this movie for accuracy, you're going to be very disappointed. If you're going to this film to see a semi-fictionalized version of the story of how Michael Jackson was in the Jackson 5 and then broke free and did Thriller and was gigantic, this is an entertaining film. I'm not going to say this movie isn't entertaining because my toes were tapping, and there's, again, a lot of discussion about this, how people can overlook bad deeds from somebody if they're famous and did things that person liked when they were kids. And I will say, I would never say I was a huge Michael Jackson fan, but I was a kid who was watching MTV all the time in the early 80s. And when Billie Jean and Beat It hit, I was all in. And I still have it somewhere, my Thriller cassette, and I had the Michael Jackson bubblegum cards, and I bought a magazine that was all pictures of Michael Jackson and stuff because he was just huge and the music was so damn good at the time. So as time went on, I sort of drifted because he just seemed to get weirder and weirder. Even before the allegations and all of that stuff, all the dark stuff came out, he was just a little too weird for me, and all of that. I wouldn't say he still didn't have catchy songs, but anyway, that's my personal history with Michael Jackson. So watching this, I'm like, well, I don't really know the intricate details of the story, but there are moments that I call BS. Like, there's a moment where he's in a toy store sort of anonymously and some kid recognizes him and asks for his autograph, or his mother asks for an autograph, and the little boy is holding an original box of the Atari game Adventure. And at one point, Michael sees that, and the kid's like, "Oh, do you know the game?" He's like, "Oh yeah, make sure you hit left twice to power up." And I'm like, "That's bullshit. That's not that's not how that game worked." I know, I'm intimately familiar with the game Adventure, and he was basically giving a much later Nintendo or later kind of period reference to what games do, not what an Atari one stick, one button game about getting away from a dragon. And it's one of those things where it's like, maybe they didn't know until the day that that's what they were going to be what the box was going to be that they were talking about, but they could have easily looked it up. They could have easily gone anonymously online and said, what's a good tip if you're playing the Atari 2600 game adventure? It's a tiny thing, but when you live through an era, these things like really stick out. That, and there's a moment later on where they try to say that, MTV wouldn't play any black artists and MTV wouldn't play any of the videos from the Thriller album, and he's huge and Thriller's gigantic and he's crowds of people surrounding him in the streets, but MTV really needs to play those videos so that he can become even bigger. And that, to a degree, all of that is true. Although, as the Rolling Stone piece pointed out, MTV was playing the hell out of Eddie Grant's Electric Avenue and Musical Youth's Pass the Dutchie. So they were playing black artists at the time, just not as widely as they later would. Because, that's how I knew who Eddie Grant and Musical. I loved Musical Youth at the time. I loved Eddie Grant at the time. Fitting a narrative for the purposes of dramatic effectivity, but they show him as being gigantic before MTV played those videos. And my memory is that as a Caucasian youth in New Hampshire, I didn't know who Michael Jackson was until I started seeing those videos. My memory is that MTV played those videos and then the album went insane after that, but I could be wrong. So, nitpicking aside, how is the movie? Well, if you love Michael Jackson, I think it's pretty entertaining. The music in it is great. The performance in it is great. It's a movie that looks fabulous on the big screen. It's a movie that sounds fabulous in a theater. I tell anybody, if you want to see this, see it big and see it loud. The performances, I think, are pretty good. Colman Domingo is a little bit slimily sinister as Joe Jackson, who's clearly the villain in the piece, and to many was the villain in real life. He was the one that sort of motivated and trained and got his boys into being the Jackson 5 and into this huge success. And some would say, and I guess even Michael Jackson himself said, yes, he beat us really badly. He was incredibly abusive, but he also channeled that and channeled us into being a success. So it's one of those things where it's like, some give him credit for the success of that family and of Michael Jackson, and other give him credit for the reason Michael Jackson had the problems he had later on in life. So Domingo is good, but a little cartoony, slimy. Nia Long is there mostly just to sort of look loving and be supportive. The rest of the cast is good. A lot of the cast is pretty spot on in terms of looking like the people they're supposed to. The Jackson 5, this film, due to various things, Janet Jackson didn't want to be involved. So if you watch, this is the problem with biopics that are inaccurate to me, is that a lot of people are going to watch this and be like, well, that's what happened. And the answer is no, this is a fanciful story based around what happened, but it's not the truth. Just like in the Queen film, Freddie Mercury didn't know he had AIDS, and when he did Live Aid, that was just for creative and dramatic purposes. They fiddled with the timeline. This movie does that quite a bit. There's no Janet Jackson in this movie. When you see the family assembled, it's missing a few members. Rebby Jackson is not in this film at all. Randy Jackson, not the former American Idol judge, Randy Jackson of the Jacksons is not in the film at all. And and as Janet Jackson's not in the film. So stuff is missing, but I think for a normal person, for a moviegoer, for somebody who casually remembers Michael Jackson and his hits or loved him when they were kids, they're probably going to enjoy this quite a bit, despite the controversy, despite the dark stuff. The movie ends before the allegations came out, so you really see this film goes from 66 to about 84, 85, 86 or so. It goes from the Jacksons, first starting to become a hit, the Jackson 5, up through when Michael is doing the Victory Tour with his brothers. Which, again, personal anecdote, I went to an air show, the only air show I ever went to as a kid in 84-ish, I believe it was. And at the time, Pepsi was the vendor at the air show. So if you wanted a soda, it was a Pepsi. And all of the cans on the back panel had an ad for the Victory Tour, for the logo, and facsimiles of all of their signatures. And I grabbed as many of those as I could. I'm like, these are going to be cool to keep in the future. And this was, it's like it's autographed. It goes up to the Victory Tour, and then it shows you a little bit from the Bad Tour, and then it just ends with this thing that says his story continues. And I don't know if that means he lives on as a legend, or if it means that there's going to be more movies if this one's a success. This one currently is a pretty big success. So it's Mike Myers is in this in a cameo, which is almost unrecognizable at first. As he starts to talk, this person sounds familiar, and you realize it's Mike Myers, and he's pretty funny. And it's I don't know, I thought it was good. Bubbles is in this, yes. It is a CGI chimp, which to me, always feels like a cartoon. Like it never feels like it's really there. Like it looks more accurate. We can't have real chimps in films anymore. Even though some certain scenes, I'm like, but if somebody's just holding a baby chimp in their arms, surely you could just have a real chimp for that. I don't know. We don't have real chimps in films anymore, probably because they weren't treated very well for the longest time. But I still feel like there could be moments where you could do a mix. You could do a mix of CGI and the real thing. Anyway, I'm all over the place with this. This is an insanely long review. If you are a big fan of Michael Jackson and you just want to hear those songs and sort of pretty accurate reproductions of great moments in his career on the big screen, it's a pretty entertaining movie. If you are concerned about the darker aspects of his life and the allegations of abuse and all kinds of weirdness, this film does not touch on that at all, and that might upset people who want to go and have a bad time at the movies, I guess. So I totally get it all. I totally get it all. No need for the comments and the angry letters. I totally get it. I just went to the movie to report to you what I saw. So that's what I saw in theaters now. And there's a bit with Billie Jean. There's a bit with the Billie Jean video where I think Bob Giraldi would probably have something to say about Michael Jackson entirely choreographing that music video with gang members. Anyway, aside from that, I thought it was very entertaining in the moment. Michael, not the film, with John Travolta, about an angel.